Good afternoon, folks. Good evening, folks. Good morning, folks, depending upon where you are. Short little ditty here on NASDAQ. I worked with my son today in regards to this particular indice, and I shared this morning the draw on liquidity, lower prices. At the time, it favored lower prices, and I showed you a 5-point or 5-handle run. You can see that on my Twitter feed. For NASDAQ, I showed about 20 handles, and then I switched over to an intraday swing model, which I'll quickly and briefly go through right now. So you can see we traded above these relative equal highs here, and we had this gap. So all of this is a buy side imbalance, sell side inefficiency. So the likelihood, even if it doesn't go all the way through here, it's likely to trade into this low and into this range here. So I want to be very nimble and work with a very tight range. Okay, here's the 15-minute time frame, and I'll add the lipstick now. So here is that old high or relative equal highs. We traded above that here on Monday, and then we hugged the current new week opening gap. So here's new week opening gap high, new week opening gap low. Traded up into it here, moved away, and we'll see this gap here on a 5-minute chart. Okay, so that separation here after trading up into the new week opening gap, and a shift below here. So a rally back up into, this is your what? This is your model 22 or 2022 here, and then returns back to that fair value gap here. And then the ICT silver bullet trade. This is my son Cameron's model. In between the 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock hour, you're going to be looking for a fair value gap to trade into. As you can see here, we had news at 10 o'clock, high impact, and I used this order block here. While we were inside that order block, I went short right at 10 o'clock. The market broke down. I took a small profit just to show my son this is a small little scalp. 5 points is like 20 points for a NASDAQ trade, in my opinion. It might not be the same for you, but that's how it is for me. But then I noticed that we were likely to continue, and I used the Six Sister approach that I was talking about in one of my Twitter spaces in recent months. I'll talk more about that in more detail in specific lessons on this YouTube channel, but suffice it to say that I used that mentality and methodology to get in sync with what has already transpired in ES, which is looking for lower prices. If you look at this shaded area down here, and I jumped ahead to this time frame without actually having an opportunity to show you what I was looking for. Let's just go into a 15-minute time frame. You don't see anything there, do you? But you do see sell-side liquidity there. Let's go to a 60-minute chart. Hourly chart here, there's that small little gap there, which also resides below that low. So it's the first imbalance below this sell-side liquidity pool. So while we're up here, I thought that we could drop down to here, and that would be fine. Using this low to that high equilibrium, it would be below that to reach for that. So that's sufficient enough for me to find that setup. Let's drop right down into a 1-minute chart and get right down to the nitty-gritty. Here is the business. We'll add the executions. Okay, you can see right there inside the order block. All right, so right there, you can see the entry at 13,281.5, which is inside of the 5-minute order block. And I covered here as a running through this low. So that's a short-term little scalp. That would be the equivalent of like a 5-handle run on ES for my son. But teaching him ES versus NQ or NASDAQ, the difference is 20 for 5 or 5 for 20, vice versa. ES 5 handles, NASDAQ 20. And then I saw this gap here, and I didn't want to miss it. I felt we would maybe spike up in there one more time to get up into it, but we never really got it, did we? So my entry here, not the best, but it is what it is, with the expectation of this being tagged real quick and then leaving that portion open. I was treating this idea of this area here as a breakaway gap, thinking that we could have spiked up in here. So I was fortunate enough to get in on this one right before we wiped out and went lower. Small little city here, sell sign imbalance, buy sign inefficiency, price goes up to that and trades down into that hourly imbalance. So the high of that is what my limit order is for the 5 handles, or 5 contracts rather. So it come in just about 80 handles or so on NASDAQ today. So which would be about 40 handles on ES. Till next time, be safe.